It is with pleasure that I welcome you all to the Creating Virtual Tours with Infiniscope training here today. This is a part of a series that we're running through the Navigating the New Arctic Community Office. And whenever I share my screen in Google Slides, these weird boxes sometimes appear and my students all get really annoyed. So if you're seeing weird boxes, it's just something that the Google Slides does on my computer. So I apologize. We are gonna be getting an orientation to the Tour It tool from Jessica Swan and Chris Mead here. They're both from Arizona State University, and the Navigating the New Arctic project is an NSF initiative, and Elise, Elena, Anna, and I help run educational programming and trainings through the community office. And we focus on holistic understanding of the Arctic. And we work distributed across the lands of the Dene peoples, where Lower Canada Dene, where Elena Sparrow and I are sitting. And boy, Elise, you're not sitting on UC Boulder lands, but you are of University of Colorado Boulder. And we don't just like acknowledge the land, we actively seek justice and equitable relationships through the Navigating the New Arctic work. So at least you want to give a shout out for the next event?
Oh, I was going to save that to the end. So those were the only intro slides.
I will unshare.
Thanks.
All right. So yeah, welcome and for another great session on storytelling and science. I'll turn it over to Jessica or Chris, whoever you guys are gonna start.
Thank you so much for that amazing introduction. Also with us here is Joe Tamer. So Joe Tamer is the deputy PI for the Infiniscope project, and he worked very closely with some of the Hawaii teachers that we will be showcasing a little later today. So he can speak a lot to his experiences in working with our friends over in Hawaii. All right, so before we really get started, the first thing that I need to do is make sure that everyone actually has an account with Infiniscope. So I'm going to drop the join link over here in chat. You're going to need that account in order to be able to get in and start playing with the tool. So if you have not created it yet, and some of your names are in fact familiar, if you take the time to fill out the form right now, then when I hand off to Chris, I'll go in and accept your account. So you'll be able to log in once we're ready to get in and start playing with the tool. And with that handled, I'll go ahead and start sharing my screen. All right, can you verify you see my screen appropriately? Amazing. All right, so we are going to give you a quick introduction to Infiniscope first. So we are based here at Arizona State University. We're out of the Center for Education Through Exploration, which is under the School of Earth and Space Exploration. A lot of exploration. That's the theme here of the things that we do. So what we're going to cover today, we're going to talk a little bit about the project. So what is Infiniscope? Chris is going to talk a little bit about place-based learning, and then we're going to go into the virtual tool. So we're going to show you how the tool works, how easy it is to build something. We're also going to let you try it. So we're going to give you some assets that you can use. You'll go ahead and log in and open up Tour It and just start creating, and give you an opportunity to ask some questions along the way if you have them. So that's our plan for this short hour here together. So I'll just go ahead and launch in. Well, what is Infiniscope? So Infiniscope is a NASA-funded project. And as I said, we're based out of Arizona State University. The project itself is a digital teaching network. So everything we do here, we really focus primarily on middle and high school audiences. That's really kind of our jam. So everything we design, we try to make sure that it is NGSS, so Next Generation Science Standard aligned, designed and aligned for the next generation science standards. Those things are adaptive and interactive, but I want to focus a little more on adaptive Most of us have many experiences in things that are interactive. So we've played with simulations that are interactive. We've played with interactive visualizations, those sort of things. But really what we specialize in is making those interactives adaptive. So what adaptive means is that it allows our audience to be able to kind of choose their own adventure through a learning experience. So we can fill in, fill in knowledge gaps, misconceptions, allow some agency for our students to be able to explore in a way that they would like to explore content. We predominantly focus on the earth and space sciences. And as I said, we are geared more towards middle and high school educators and students. But it's not just about the stuff that we make. The other things is that, as you'll see today, we make the tools that we use available to our network. So we have two tools. The one we're focusing on today is Tourit. The other one is something that is called a simplified authoring tool that would actually allow you to take something like a virtual field trip that you build here and then drop it into this kind of adaptive platform so that you can kind of create some form of like assessment sort of questions if you want to actually elicit what someone might understand or what they're curious about, what their questions are. There's a platform that would enable us to do that. But for today, we're just going to focus on Tourit. That's the big one. So we make everything available ultimately because we want to be able to catalyze creators. It's not just about using our stuff, but also empowering other people to create and to tell their stories. And then finally, we don't just leave people hanging, we provide training. So the most important part is that we provide training to all of our users if they're interested and want to learn more about how to use these tools more effectively. We do those things. We predominantly focus our heaviest trainings over the summer. And I've got a form that you guys can fill out later if you're interested in joining us this summer for some of our training. And also over the course of this year, we're working to create asynchronous training modules so that you can kind of do things on your own timeline and not have to rely on being here in Zoom at the same time as everyone else. Sometimes that just doesn't work with our schedule. So anyway, so that is the Digital Teaching Network, and this is ultimately our goal. So this is our vision here in the ETX Center, is that we want to be able to transform learning. We want to embrace exploration. We want the users that are going through our learning experiences to explore, and we want them to explore the unknown and at scale. So this one really answers why we kind of double down on technology. So I get asked, why do you only use tech? Why are you only digital? Because digital enables us to do things at scale. I can reach more students using a digital platform, more end users using a digital platform than I can with just physical materials and kits. So that is ultimately what we do. And everything that we design, so all of this off-the-shelf content that we create, we use what's called the exploration learning loop. So the exploration learning loop means that we pique a user's curiosity. We want our learner to come in and wonder and want to explore, ask questions that drive them to explore and then ultimately make discoveries. And for all of us that have participated in the scientific process, we know that discovery ultimately leads to new curiosities and new questions. For those who have worked in a formal education realm, you would know this learning loop as the 5E inquiry model, but we just made it into 3 E's. But a C, an E, and a D, not E's. Same thing. We just renamed them. Anyway, so we always tell our teachers that they can be rest assured that anything that they use of ours off the shelf incorporates these. Additionally, when we provide training, we ensure that these elements get included in that design. So when you're interested in building for learning design, we're looking at piquing student curiosity, driving them to explore, and then ultimately driving them to discovery. So that is Infiniscope in a nutshell. And I'm going to hand off to Chris, and he's going to talk a little bit about place-based learning and why Tourit.
Thanks, Jess. Do you want to go on to the next slide? Great. So I guess I'm not positive that I introduced myself exactly or that I was before. So I should say just for additional detail, I do work with the Infiniscope project here. I'm kind of here for two reasons. So my role at ASU in our department is primarily as an education researcher and evaluator. And so I do work with Infiniscope very closely. I'm the evaluator on that project, but I also have my own separate virtual field trip related project called Polar Explorer. And so that's, again, part of the reason that Katie and the team invited me to come as well, was to sort of cross-pollinate between Infiniscope and this other virtual field trip project. So just, again, by way of kind of expertise and interest, I have worked on virtual field trips for a long time, and I'm extremely excited now that Touret kind of exists in this form and has solved so many problems that we've been working with and struggling with for a long time. But that said, place-based learning. So place-based learning is a term that I'm happy to see has kind of made the rounds a lot. And I think it's probably something that a fair few of you have already heard of. And it's an effective way to contextualize learning for students. So for those of you who haven't heard of place-based learning before, one detail I want to call particular attention to is the word place itself. So not everybody sees it this way, but this is the interpretation of it that I really like, is that place is more than just a location. A location is an actual like lat-long coordinate. It's a place on Earth or it's a place elsewhere. That's a location. But by the word place, we mean something that encompasses not just the physical or the biological aspects of that location, but also includes the many layers of social and socially and culturally constructed meaning that have evolved in response to that location. And so the best place-based education communicates those cultural meanings and invites the learner to connect the existing place meanings to their own personal values or their own culture. And so it's it's both a way to kind of recognize and respect and take advantage of, I suppose, the many existing cultures that may be in that place and that may have been. But to also really draw the student in and say, what about these existing place meanings that I'm describing to you resonate for you, the student? They may exactly appreciate and acknowledge and buy into some of those, or they may have their own. They may look at it and even immediately create their own place meanings and place attachments. And that's a really powerful way to engage in education and to take advantage of place. So next slide. And so saying place-based learning, probably most people would immediately think to a field trip, a physical field trip. Whether that's to your college campuses out Arboretum or somewhere else in town or out into the wilderness to the Grand Canyon to geology to a ecological reserve. And that's great. That's great. Not taking anything away from physical trips, but there are a lot of logistical challenges that come with in-person field trips. It's actually monetarily expensive. It's time consuming. And there are also safety concerns. And there are some just practical limitations. If you're in Alaska, you're probably not going to take a class field trip to Arizona and vice versa. And so now that we do have these virtual field experiences, we start to have a lot of reason to think that these actually are a very good way to bring more place-based learning and more field learning to more places and to overcome a lot of those practical challenges. Oh, sorry, one other thing I meant to say here. Another aspect that can be challenging and gets back to some of the things I talked about in the previous slide is you personally may not know all of the place meanings and the culture and cultural connections and cultural meanings that exist in that place. So there again, by having a virtual field trip and perhaps collaborating with other experts or local experts, you can again sort of more fully take advantage of these place meanings and bring that into your learning in a way that might not be practical with a simple in-person field trip. Next slide. So with all that being said, let's talk a little bit about virtual field trips. Next slide. Now, as I alluded to, we in the ETX Center at Arizona State have actually been working in virtual field trips for a long time, for the better part of a decade at least. And we've got a lot of experts, technical experts, learning design experts who can build these things, but there's no two ways about it. They're complicated to make. They require technical expertise. They require media expertise. They're costly. And they're even hard for some of our staff to work with. I mean, I personally, as much as I've been involved with this, could not easily modify those more complicated virtual field trips we're making. So, next slide. Tour it. Tour it is the solution to those problems. It does not replace the most complicated and most sophisticated kinds of virtual field trips that our team and others have and still do make. But what it does do is it kind of gets you to the minimum baseline level where you can get all of those advantages of place-based learning and where you can get all those accessibility options of virtual field experiences without needing to be hand programming things or to be using expensive and very complicated software to create these things. So next slide. With relatively affordable consumer cameras, such as the 360 camera by Ricoh Theta here shown, or many other similar options, anybody can capture media that has these 360-degree photos. They can supplement those with flat photography from a smartphone or any DSLR, camera phone movies like we'll show you later, and with not a great deal of effort and no particular technical skill can put these together. And literally, you all, by the end of this this webinar, are going to have a chance to put together a basic virtual tour with some media that we already captured from the Tulip Field Station. And I hope that that will inspire some ideas for you all in future that can address each of your own individual place-based and storytelling in the new Arctic education and outreach needs. So I'm going to hand it back to Jess, and she's going to show some examples from other educators and as well as our own staff who have made some tours that we think are really effective.
And before I actually do that, I'm actually going to hand the microphone over to Joe, because the two videos that I'm going to show are actually outputs from some of the work that he did with our friends in Hawaii. So maybe, Joe, could you talk a little bit about the work that you did there?
Sure. So for the Infiniscope project, we partnered with Kamehameha Schools, which is a native Hawaiian school system in Hawaii. And one of the questions that we had was, what's the difference between us making a virtual field trip, as Chris was describing, and empowering other educators to create their own virtual tours? So for the last, not in the last 2 years, in 2022 and 2020, we went to Hawaii. We trained a handful of teachers each year on how to use Tourette, earlier versions of Tourette, and they've kind of given feedback on how to improve it. You're seeing version 3.0. So some of their feedback has gone into the user interface and the features of Tourette. And what we discovered was when we put the camera in their hands and the authoring tools in their hands to create the virtual tour, it's a different learning experience than I would create or Jess would create or Chris would create, right? When you create these learning experiences, who's holding the camera and who is sharing the narrative matters. It gives context to the place. And that context and that narrative can be a powerful way to engage with your student audience. Because, if I'm doing a virtual tour on climate change, it'll be about climate change in kind of a sterile way. It might be at that location, as Chris was saying. But if you have people who know that place, live in that community, have personal experiences about that place, you get a higher level of engagement from the students, and they start to care about that place and the knowledge being shared. They don't feel talked at, they feel more shared with. And so, as you'll see, over those 2 trips, we had 9 different educators create virtual tours for their students and then shared them amongst themselves with the narrative that they've created at those locations. Jess, is that
Yeah.
where you wanted
Yeah,
to go? Cool.
Yep. So I have 2 testimonials that I pulled from Joe to share with you, mostly about the value. Like, what is the value that they saw between, their desire to do some storytelling and how Touret enabled them to do that storytelling. And hopefully my sound will work.
The value and the power of our teachers building these types of virtual tours is empowering them to tell our own stories from our own perspectives. There's so many people that think Hawaii is a little vacation spot, but they're surprised to hear that we had electricity in both of our palaces before the White House did, and that we were advanced in so many ways. And what these virtual tours do is they allow our teachers and our students to tell our own stories, to guide our own narratives, and to kind of combat what the stereotypes are, but really to also dive into the technology of today and utilize it in their classrooms to empower their students to also continue telling their stories, and understanding sometimes keeping silent, other people will fill in the narrative. But if we tell our own stories, that's where the power lies and the beauty.
I think it's most important for any Native and Indigenous group to be able to tell their own stories, because in the past, our stories were always told from not our point of view, typically the colonist point of view. And so being able to get on something like Touret, which allows us to not just tell our story, but to tell our story with visual pieces in the ways that we want to and the ways that we choose, is most important, because it allows us to tell the story from our perspective and from our truth.
Okay, so kind of feels like, you guys already know most of this. Probably the big thing is, well, how easy is the tool to use? So we do have this is a few minute video that just kind of runs through all of Touret and how quickly kind of orients you to all of the tools that are available within Touret to kind of get the juices flowing for you on how you might be able to start assembling your own stories. And after this, I'll show you how you can get access to Touret, because now all of your accounts have been created, and we'll give you some tools and you can start building. She says, play. Nope, I just did this not but a minute ago. No, cool. All right, well, let me go another direction. Am I still screen sharing?
Do you want me to try to share it from my end?
Yeah, is the video playing for you?
Yeah.
I don't know why it's not playing for me now. Weird. That would be great. Thanks, Chris.
I'm gonna try. That working? Is that sharing sound though?
Not hearing sound.
Hang on, there's a button I have to press. Right. No dice.
No? It won't play for you either?
You might have to have it on show. I mean, because it was not on full screen when you shared your screen.
That's okay. I'll just do it straight from YouTube. That'll work. I need Jesus. It's so easy to use that I can't even get the link.
We
Funny.
could also share the video in chat if people want to watch it on the
I got it.
break. You know, okay.
I'm good. Let me, like right there. I literally just ran through this whole thing before we started. You know how technology is.
Even the tech educators have problems.
Yeah.
Recently.
Oh, I got an ad. That's new. Okay, we'll let that play through. And maybe that's what my problem was. It just wanted to play an ad. And all right. But I didn't share sound. One more time.
We'll edit this part out of the Zoom recording.
That'd be great. Appreciate it. Okay. Especially the ad. We don't want that. Here we go.
You're just sharing your desktop now.
Yeah, don't we see this?
You're kidding.
Yes. I mean, I'm not kidding now.
Interactive environment. One more time.
We can hear it though, so that part's
That's true.
improved.
Progress.
That's good. Okay, it says Google Chrome.
Yes.
All right, one more time.
You can use digital storytelling to convey a sense of place about a location. This video will show you the steps to making a basic tour and is paired with media assets for you to replicate the tour. Once you are familiar with the tool, we recommend learning more about place-based learning through Infiniscope's workshops and resources to build quality narrative tours that will engage your audience. To start a project, click the plus icon. Then name your project by clicking on the pencil icon next to the largest letters and typing the name. You can change the name at any time. Upload a JPEG panorama by either dragging the file into the Upload Panoramas field or by clicking to browse and find the file. Spherical panoramas, or panos, that are 360 degrees with a high resolution will work best, but there is a 10 megabyte size limit for any file added to a tour. You can then rename the panos. You can also delete existing content, like this blank panorama used as an example. Next, click on the panorama to open the panorama editor. Here you can view, edit, and add hotspots like media and links to the pano. To edit the information presented by the pano, click on the pencil icon to open a pop-up window where you can name the pano, type a description, and even add sound like MP3 audio. Click on the green check on the top right when finished adding the information. To maneuver in the tour, click and drag to change the view. Scroll up and down to zoom in and out. Click on the mountain icon to set a starting position or default view within the pano. To add hotspots, like media and links to the pano, click on the Add a Hotspot button. A pop-up menu will appear. There are many kinds of hotspots to choose from within the tool, as seen in the drop-down menu. For the first hotspot, let's connect this pano to a second one. You can then rename the pano and move the hotspot. At any point, you can preview your project by clicking on the binoculars icon to preview the project in the browser window. Though there are thumbnails to access panos at the bottom, the hotspots can guide viewers in a non-linear way as well. To go back to the editor, close the tab when finished previewing, as was done here off screen. Let's add some more hotspots to this example. To move to another pano, use the double arrows or move with a hotspot. Double-click to add the hotspot. You can also drag it to a better location. Use the drop-down to choose the type of hotspot to add and fill in the information associated with that hotspot. For a text hotspot, select the button from the menu or double-click. The hotspots here were added by double-clicking. An image hotspot can take JPEG, PNG, and GIF files. You can also add PDFs. And you could add videos using either Vimeo or YouTube. You must make sure the YouTube or Vimeo videos are not set to private for others to be able to view them in the tour. Finally, websites can be added. Some websites do not have permissions to be viewable in tools like this, so you should check them in preview mode to make sure they work. You can see a menu of all the hotspots added by clicking on the Toggle Hotspots Table button on the Pano menu to the right. This menu will allow you to see each hotspot within the menu, and also, if you click on the menu item, it will show you the hotspot within the pano. Once you have edited your pano, you can add more panos to the project by leaving the editor and clicking on the panoramas in the navigation bar. Once you are ready to share your tour, click on the Share button in the menu to get a shareable link. The link to the project will be shown in a pop-up window, allowing you to copy the link to the clipboard or open the tour in a new tab. Now that your project is publicly shareable, you will see a couple of new icons appear in the toolbar. You can make your tour private by clicking on the Make Private button, and the link will no longer work. By clicking it again, it will be public using the exact same link as before. If you make changes to your tour after making it public, click on the Update Changes button to save those changes and push them out. These changes will be updated using the same link. And that's how you can make a tour using Tourit. This was to make a basic tour to get your feet wet. To take your tour to the next level, use Infiniscope's workshops and resources to develop a sense of place, increase accessibility and inclusivity, learn media strategies, and more. For more information and support, visit infiniscope.org.
Woot. All right, so let's get into Tourit. So I'm going to have you all go over to the Infiniscope website. And so to get to Infiniscope, it's just infiniscope.org. Drop it right here in the chat. This is the fun part, because having people live log in is a whole nother technical thing. So we will all be very patient with each other as we work through logging in. Oh, that's a great question, Annie. I will show you where you can find live tours. So we do publish tours on the Infiniscope website. But the tours that we publish do have to have some sort of NASA flavor to them because we are NASA funded. It doesn't mean that there aren't other tools that are out there or other tours that are out there in the ether, but the ones that we publish do have NASA. Okay, so if you're on the website, we're going to go over here to the right-hand side, and we need to log in. So you're going to choose a little hexagon, and you're going to put in your email address and your password. Click that login button, and then we're going to fingers crossed everyone gets logged in on their first try. So give me a thumbs up when you get logged in. All right, Elise is in. Annie's in. Amanda's in. I love it. Haley's in. Joe's in. Elena's in. 4 to go. You should definitely keep this part in the video, in the recording. All right, Suzanne's in. Selena's in. Katie's in. And I'm going to click that login button. All right, so you may or may not have the educator mode on. If you do not have educator mode on, just click that little button. You'll know it's on when the entire toolbar at the top changes color. So it should be this kind of, if you're not colorblind, it's going to be a teal color. If you are, it's a different shade of gray for you. And you also get this little indicator, this little app menu, and you click on your little app menu. You have all sorts of new things that are available to you, but today we're interested in Tourit. So we're just going to click on the little Tourit button, and you're in. So Chris, would you do me a favor, and would you drop that Dropbox folder over into chat? So we've assembled a handful of assets that you can use to start building your own tour. What I would love to see you all do, and I can put a slide up that says this too, To put at least 3 panoramas in there. Chris, you have at least 3 panoramas in that folder, yes? Cool. So let's do like 3 panoramas and then just start adding media. So we've got some images that are in there. You can also do a flat image as a panorama and kind of see how that looks and how it doesn't look great. How a 360 camera is definitely the way to go. But we just want to give you time to tinker. So play with some videos, play with some assets, see kind of what you build. We're going to give you, I don't know, maybe about 10 minutes and then kind of all come back together. We'll be available here to answer questions along the way if you're having any trouble. Sound like a plan? Great.
And just note the files are named hopefully in a helpful way. So the ones that start with 360 are your panos. The ones that start with anything else aren't.
I did drop a PDF in there. There's also a Word file with a couple of videos that might be helpful. YouTube videos.
Oh yeah, that's right. So the movie file in there, don't use the movie file because you can't. So you have the, yeah, Jess has the link to the YouTube version of that file in the doc. That's the other gotcha.
Yeah, we can just pull that out of the folder, right? That video.
Yeah. I'll do that.
Okay. Just to make it not confusing.
Totally. Jess, do you see the question in chat?
I don't see panoramas on projects. Oh, you'll need to upload them. So you'll want to download some of the samples that are in Dropbox. Yep, there you go. And you can drag and drop or you can use the upload function. And we'll give you all about 5 more minutes.
This is so cool. It's way easier than I thought it was gonna be.
I'm gonna need to get you, I'm gonna need to record that. I just want a whole series of people going, it's so easy. It's so easy. Oh, it's so easy. Just full 90 seconds of it's so easy.
As impressive as I used to think you guys were geniuses, and it's so impressive. Now I'm like, oh, I could do this. Oh.
Calm down, Katie. Calm down, Katie. Jeffrey is still a genius, and the magic stuff he does. This is for the rest of us.
You got to create the tool. Like, that was pretty amazing. Anna's got a great question there.
Yeah. What do you mean by process the images?
You can record me too. This is so awesome and so easy. But these are nice pictures, Chris, that you are scenes that you processed. How do we get the scenes? How do we crop the scenes? Is it just individual photos? You just go and take a 3D photo and upload it, or do you need to unwarp them or kind of modify the scenes?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the 360 cameras themselves, like if you have a dedicated 360 camera, like, you know, like the Theta that we showed, or like this thing, those will they take a 360 camera, right? They take a 360 photograph. They take a photograph that has this information and it has this weird projection. So if you open that file in like a normal photo editor, it'll look weird and distorted. That's the thing that Turret does, is Turret understands how to reproject the image so that it looks normal. So you as a camera owner and a Turret user don't need to do anything. It'll just happen for you. But there is one thing that you will, if you start doing this, want to do as an editing step, which is that the cameras do a great job of stitching the scene together. They do that for you. What they don't do is automatically remove the tripod or your hand or your head or something from below the image. And as far as I'm aware, there's not a free software that does it. I literally just last week, in prep for this workshop, started playing with a piece of software that's not free, but seemed to work quite well for me. And it's called Affinity, but it's not. If you were going to do a bunch of them, that might be worth it, because it was very easy, even for me who doesn't understand how to use things like Photoshop, to just kind of blur out the bottom. You could look into that. They're called nadir corrections or things like that. That's the only editing I suspect most people would need to do. But beyond that, they're just photos. So if you really want to go, like, you want to make images look great and you know how to use Photoshop, you could do it in Photoshop, kind of. So sorry, that's a start of a long answer, but that's what I know.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Sounds just as easy as Turret.
Well, I will caution you that for some odd reason, technology seems to be moving backwards in this space. There was a time that, Google had Street View and you could actually export 360 sphericals from Street View. They completely decommissioned Street View. I mean, shoot, before we had Turret, there was actually a Google Tour creator. And let's see, 2020 came around and they said, oh, this is useless. And all of these teachers are there like looking for things. And so they decommissioned that. And now we just heard today, Google Pixel used to take these 360-degree images, and they're not doing that anymore either. So even your smartphones are like, yeah, we're not doing this anymore. I don't know why, but getting a low cost 360 camera, it doesn't have to be anything super fancy. We have a 10 megabyte upload limit anyway, so you don't need super high resolution imagery to do these things. And I think our cameras are on the order of maybe like $250, so they don't need to be super costly. Chris, would you like to show off the quick tour that you created with similar assets?
Yeah, you seeing this here, everybody? So these are the same assets, and I put this together in, I'm sorry, I'm probably spinning a little fast. I put this together in 10 minutes. So it doesn't have the niceties of like a description of here, like where you are. It doesn't have a lot of annotations. I did do one thing, which is a nice thing to think about. I put it, as I realized I was making this thing, and I was like, how is anybody who hasn't been to Tula going to understand what direction they're pointing or whatever? And so I pulled down this map from the Tulik website. I made some labels here that correspond to the names that I gave for the 360 panos. And so this is a real easy way for you, if you find yourself in a similar situation, to add just one image here and to give them a map view, an aerial view or something, so that when they do click through here and they do navigate through the scene, they have a little bit of added context. They can look with their eyes, of course, but sometimes it's just a lot easier to give somebody that aerial view. But yeah, so it's nothing special, but you know, I when we were at Tulik this past summer, I really enjoyed it, and I took these pictures anyway before we planned this this training.
Yeah, and also I would suggest, with good learning design for each one of those different panos, I would go in and take that map and I would actually put like some sort of marker over this area so they could follow along on the map as you travel.
That's another
Joe
great
with
idea.
his
Yeah,
hand up.
that's another great idea, Josh.
I just wanted to say Chris is modeling good behavior or good practice there in terms of getting something done quick and having done a few cycles with teachers. The one thing that I will say, and having been a teacher myself and married to a teacher, is sometimes we get in our head that it has to be perfect the first time that we do it. And that's a trap, because like you can make these absolutely phenomenal and put hours and hours and hours into them. And what I've seen prevents some teachers from doing that is they have this idea in their head about they want to do it perfect and have all this media and all this stuff. But I think what Chris just did is really good practice. Get the first spherical done with some stuff there. Look at it, figure out how it could be better, what you could do more to add to it. And then it's an iterative process. And what I found is teachers really like that approach to it. Just like you're doing with a lesson plan. I get the first draft done, and then after I get feedback from the students, I make it better for next year, next semester. If you go in with that approach, it's really easy to do something quick and build. So
So to start with that, we call them informative tours. And so when we do our summer training, we talk about how to turn something from being an informative tour to something that's much more exploratory, that really drives the learner to want to learn more. And so Chris has dropped a couple of examples from Hawaii in there. And then I also have one that I'll show you real quick. This one is from one of our teachers who's participated for a number of years in our summer training. And so she likes to gamify hers. And I think Anna, I think you've seen this before. I think I shared it with you previously. But she does this thing where it's like, oh, I have a start here. And so she's got her little Bitmoji. She refers to everyone as player. So instead of having a name, and she's trying to make it non-gendered. She's trying to tell this story about her community. And this is kind of what I love about this particular thing is that she sees a problem in her community, and that is that there's a littering problem, and there's quite a few signs that they find along the way that really demonstrate that there is this littering problem. Here's an observation station. They have like all of these no dumping zones, and as they progress through this tour, the students start to see more and more litter in their community, but amongst all of these no dumping signs. So things like couches and just like large items dumped in their community. So she's using this as part of her outreach effort to try to reduce the dumping situation that's happening in her community. Finally, I think, so I do have a quick QR code for you because, you know, QR codes are easy, right? So if you would like to learn more and join us this summer about how to transition something from being an informative tour to something that's a bit more exploratory, that is sort of narrative driven, that really uses place-based learning principles, scan the QR code. This is just an interest form. Just tell us that you're interested, and we'll make sure to send you information about the training, both the asynchronous modules, and we're going to be doing some hybrid stuff this summer also. So with that, we got about 5 minutes left for questions, and I think Elise also has a couple more slides too, right?
Yeah, Amanda just posted a question in the chat if you want to do that, and then I'll do my.
Yep, it does not. So you will have to add another panorama hotspot that links back to the original pano. Good question. All right, I will stop screen sharing. And I'll drop my email in the chat if you want to send me any. I know people are incubators, you know, sometimes things pop up. You're like, oh, I wonder if. Feel free to send me an email.
I have a very, just like a technical question. So when I went to try and add a video into that as a hotspot, it needed a URL, and I put a link to like a Google Drive folder, but then the video doesn't work, and Google Drive should.
Yep, it has to be a hosted video. There's a new video integration. I don't know enough about it yet. Chris, Joe, do you guys know anything about the new video?
So we did this for the new features that, you know, allow you to view the virtual tour in VR. So if you want to host your own videos, let me back up. If you want to play your virtual tour in a Oculus headset or a Quest or something like that, that doesn't support YouTube. So we need another option for playing a video in VR. So if you have your own video server, not many places do, but lots of colleges will have their own video servers. You can play videos from your own server and get around the YouTube criteria, but it's designed to be simplified through YouTube or Vimeo are the two supported options, I believe. Is that right, Jess? Or your own
Correct.
video server if you have access to that. So.
Okay, thanks. I have a question as well, if I can ask another one. Can a group, like a team, work on a project together? So not just one person accessing the file, but say Haley and I want to work on developing something together. Can we both access the same project to work together?
That is I don't know where we stand on that.
Feature. That's the most requested feature. Everybody wants that, including me. The short answer is no, yet. We advise people to just share the password and log into the same account. So it's a hack. It's a well-known request. We all want that to be a thing we can do.
It's top priority. Like, Joe.
I was just gonna say we're trying to navigate the student age thing, right? If they're posting content and they're less than 18, who's responsible? The teacher, student. So if you are a teacher and you're sharing that username and password, you're the one who's responsible. We got to figure that out, right? So that technically it's something that's possible. The question is pragmatically with teachers and students, how do we actually do that? I've had students who create things they shouldn't before, so.
Well, thank you so much, Jessica and Chris. That was super easy and fun, and I can't wait to make a tour myself. I just wanted to close out with our next NNA event. It's coming up February 15th. It's part 2 of creating science policy briefs or policy briefs from your science. And you can learn more about that at our website. And then I just put this link in the chat a couple minutes ago. I'll put it in again, but we would love your feedback on this workshop. It helps us develop future workshops and come up with new ideas. And I'll put that link in again. Otherwise, there's a QR code. And with that, I will stop recording and thank you for coming.
Thanks so much for having us.